It was a cold and blustery day in the heart of the city. Jamal, a young black boy of 12 bundled in a worn-out hoodie, walked home from school, his stomach growling louder with every step. He had never been one to ignore those who were less fortunate than him. His mother had always taught him that kindness was a strength, not a weakness. So when Jamal noticed the homeless man sitting on the curb, a paper cup in front of him, his decision was instant. "Hey, mister," Jamal said, his voice hesitant at first but strong with compassion. The man, wrapped in layers of ragged clothing, looked up from the sidewalk with weary, clouded eyes. His face was unshaven, and his skin weathered by time and hardship. "Hey, kid," the man replied with a gravelly voice, giving a tired smile. Jamal reached into his backpack and pulled out the sandwich his mom had packed for him that day. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. He handed it to the man, who stared at it for a moment before looking back at Jamal. "You sure about this, kid?" the man asked, his voice softening, as if he couldn't believe this young boy would offer something so precious. Jamal nodded firmly. "I've got other snacks at home. You need it more than me." For a moment, the man seemed lost in thought, as if the simple act of kindness had struck him deeper than he expected. Then, he accepted the sandwich with a shaky hand. "Thank you," he said, his voice barely a whisper, as if he hadn't spoken to anyone in days. Jamal smiled, his heart warming. "No problem. Stay safe out here." As he walked away, Jamal felt a sense of peace settle over him. He didn't think much more about it, moving on with his day, unaware of the significance of the simple gesture he had made. Days passed, and Jamal's life continued as usual. He had almost forgotten about the homeless man. But one afternoon, as Jamal was walking home from school again, he noticed something strange. The same man he had helped was sitting at the same corner, but this time he wasn't alone. Jamal slowed his pace, instinctively drawn to the scene. The man, who had looked so broken and invisible the first time they met, was now sitting across from a well-dressed man in a sharp suit. The two were engaged in conversation, laughing lightly as if they were old friends. The contrast was striking. One man in rags, the other in expensive, crisp clothing. Curious, Jamal stayed at a distance, watching the interaction. He noticed that the well-dressed man seemed to be listening intently, nodding in agreement to whatever the homeless man was saying. As Jamal turned the corner, he couldn't help but wonder what could bring these two together in such a seemingly unlikely way. Later that evening, as Jamal sat at the dinner table, his mind kept drifting back to the scene. Who was that man, really? And why had he been talking to the homeless man in such a friendly way? The next day, Jamal headed home as usual. But this time, as he approached the same corner where he had first met the man, he was in for an unexpected surprise. Standing in front of the homeless man was a luxury car, sleek, polished, and expensive. The door opened, and the man in the sharp suit from the previous day stepped out. But this time, he wasn't just standing there to chat. He walked up to the homeless man, handing him a thick envelope. Jamal stopped in his tracks, hiding behind a nearby bench, watching in awe. The man in the suit spoke to the homeless man with the utmost respect. He handed him the envelope, and the two exchanged a handshake. "Take care of yourself, Sam," the man said, before getting back into the car and driving off. Jamal stood frozen, his mind racing. "Sam?" he thought to himself. "That's the same man I helped." As Jamal turned to leave, he couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary was happening right before his eyes. He had no idea how much this encounter would change his life. The next few days passed without much thought of the homeless man, or Sam as Jamal had heard him called. Life continued as normal. School, homework, and a few errands for his mom. But something about that mysterious encounter with the man in the suit lingered in Jamal's mind. One afternoon, as Jamal was walking home from school again, he found himself passing by the same street corner where he had met Sam. To his surprise, the man was there once more, sitting on the curb, just as he had been the first time. But this time, his appearance was different. Instead of ragged clothes, Sam was wearing a well-fitted jacket and clean pants. His face, which had been clouded with exhaustion before, was now lighter and more relaxed. He looked up as Jamal approached, his eyes lighting up when he saw the boy. "Hey, kid," Sam greeted warmly. "You're looking good today." Jamal blinked, stunned by the change. Thanks. You look different. What happened?" Sam chuckled softly, as if the question were amusing. "A lot of things happened, kid. You could say I've had a little help recently." His eyes twinkled with a kind of knowing smile. "Listen, I've been thinking about you and I want to do something for you." Jamal furrowed his brow, confused. "What do you mean?" Without another word, Sam reached into the bag beside him and pulled out a small envelope. He handed it to Jamal, who took it hesitantly, not sure what to make of the situation. "Open it," Sam urged with a grin. Jamal tore open the envelope, revealing a letter and a check. The letter read, "Dear Jamal, I hope this gift helps you on your journey. I was deeply moved by your act of kindness and I want to see you succeed in life. Please use this gift for your education. I've taken care of the rest. School fees, books, and any other needs you may have. Take this opportunity and make the most of it." Jamal's heart raced as he looked at the check, an amount so large it seemed impossible. He stared at Sam, his mind struggling to catch up with what was happening. Wait, Jamal stammered, looking at Sam in disbelief. This is for me. How? Sam chuckled again, his smile warm. "I'm not just any homeless man, Jamal. I'm someone who believes in giving back. And you've got something special. You helped me when you didn't have to, and that's not something I forget easily." Jamal stood frozen, his hands trembling slightly as he looked at the check again. "But why me?" he asked, struggling to understand the situation. Sam's smile softened. "Sometimes the people who help others are the ones who need it most. And sometimes those people are the ones who deserve a chance to go farther than they ever thought possible." Jamal's eyes welled up with emotion. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Sam replied, his voice steady. "Just do your best, and remember, kindness always comes back when you least expect it." Jamal nodded, overwhelmed. Thank you so much." The next few days were a blur for Jamal. After receiving the envelope from Sam, he found himself staring at the check in disbelief every few minutes, as if it might vanish or turn out to be some kind of mistake. It was an amount that could change everything for him. Enough to pay for his school fees, books, and even some of the essentials he and his mom had struggled with over the years. But the overwhelming feeling wasn't just about the money. It was the sense of opportunity. The feeling that someone, a stranger, had seen something in him and believed he could make something of himself. Jamal couldn't let that go to waste. The first thing he did was show the letter and check to his mom. She read it with wide eyes, her hand shaking as she held the paper. "This is real, Jamal," she whispered. "This is real." Jamal nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "I know, Mom. It's from him. The guy I gave the sandwich to. Sam." His mom blinked, looking at him in confusion. "Wait, Sam, the homeless man? Are you sure?" Jamal nodded, feeling the weight of the situation settle on him. "He's not just some homeless man, Mom. He's someone important. He's a billionaire." The news was shocking, but it didn't take long for his mom to understand. She hugged him tightly, tears in her eyes. "You've always had a good heart, Jamal. I'm so proud of you. This is a sign that things are going to change." Jamal had always been smart and hard-working, but his family couldn't afford the kind of education he really wanted. He dreamed of becoming a doctor, of making a real difference in the world. But his path seemed blocked by the financial challenges of everyday life. Now that door was wide open. The following week, Jamal went to the bank and cashed the check. The clerk gave him a strange look, and Jamal knew he must have looked out of place standing there with a check of that size. But he didn't care. This was his chance. He used the money wisely, paying for his school fees, buying the books he needed, and putting a little aside for emergencies. But more than that, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He studied harder than ever before, determined to prove to himself, and to Sam, that he could make the most of this gift. Each day, Jamal's confidence grew. He began to believe that maybe, just maybe, he was meant for something greater than what he had imagined for himself. And every time he passed that corner where he had first met Sam, he felt a little more certain that his life was on a new path. A month had passed since that fateful day when Jamal had met Sam on the street. His life had changed dramatically in that short time. His grades were improving, his mom was less stressed about finances, and Jamal himself felt more confident, knowing that a door had opened for him in ways he had never expected. But little did he know, the impact of that encounter was far from over. One chilly afternoon, as Jamal was walking home from school, he noticed a familiar face in the distance. It was Sam, sitting on the same corner he had been months ago, but this time, there was something different about him. He was no longer wearing ragged clothes, and there was no sign of him living on the streets. Instead, Sam looked relaxed, wearing a sharp suit and a kind smile. Jamal hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to approach him, but the sight of Sam's warm eyes reassured him. He walked up slowly, feeling a sense of familiarity that made him want to express his gratitude. "Hey Sam," Jamal called out. "It's me, Jamal." Sam's face lit up instantly when he saw the boy approaching. "Jamal, I didn't expect to see you here today. How have you been?" Jamal smiled nervously. "I've been good. Really good. I wanted to thank you for everything. For helping me out. The money. The opportunity. It's changed everything for me." Sam nodded thoughtfully, his gaze softening. "I'm glad to hear that, Jamal, but you've done the hard work. I only helped open a door for you. You're the one walking through it." Jamal's heart swelled with emotion. He couldn't explain what Sam had done for him, how much it had meant. It wasn't just the money, it was the belief Sam had shown in him, the reminder that he had value, even when the world seemed to overlook him. "I'll never forget this," Jamal said quietly, looking Sam in the eyes. "You really changed my life." Sam smiled warmly, but his eyes seemed to hold a secret, something Jamal couldn't quite place. "I'm glad you're doing well, but I have something else I need to talk to you about." Jamal raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" Sam took a deep breath, his smile fading just a little. "Jamal, I've been watching you for a while now, and I think you have a lot of potential. I want to do more for you." Jamal felt his heart skip a beat. "More? What do you mean?" Sam paused for a moment, his eyes locking with Jamal's. "I'm offering to sponsor your entire education, through high school and college. I believe in you, Jamal, and I think you have the ability to go far. I want to help you get there." Jamal was speechless. His mind was racing, trying to process what Sam had just said. This was more than he could ever have imagined. Sponsoring his entire education? It was a dream come true. Sam continued, his voice steady. "I've seen your dedication. You're capable of great things, Jamal. And I don't want you to let anything hold you back." Jamal stood frozen, his emotions bubbling over. He had worked so hard for this moment, and now here it was, handed to him by a man he had once seen as just a homeless figure. "Thank you," Jamal said softly, tears welling up in his eyes. "Thank you so much." The days following Sam's offer felt like a dream. Jamal had never imagined that someone, a stranger no less, would believe in him so fully. To have his entire education sponsored was a gift that filled him with gratitude, but also with a sense of responsibility. Sam's belief in him was more than just financial support. It was a challenge. Jamal couldn't afford to waste this second chance. He had always worked hard in school, but now every test, every assignment carried more weight. He no longer just wanted to pass. He wanted to excel. He wanted to prove to Sam, to his mom, and most importantly, to himself, that he was capable of achieving greatness. The first step was meeting with Sam's assistant to discuss the sponsorship details. Jamal's heart raced as he sat in the polished office building, surrounded by modern decor and sleek furniture. It was a world he had never imagined entering, but here he was, on the cusp of something much bigger than himself. Sam's assistant, a woman named Claire, was kind and professional. She explained the process clearly, and Jamal listened intently, trying to absorb every detail. There would be academic support, financial help with tuition, and even opportunities for internships in Sam's network, should he choose to pursue them. It was overwhelming, but also exhilarating. "Don't worry, Jamal," Claire reassured him with a smile. "We'll help guide you every step of the way. This is just the beginning." As Jamal walked out of the building, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change forever. He had spent so many years feeling like an outsider, wondering if he would ever break free from the cycle of struggle. Now it seemed like anything was possible. That evening, Jamal sat down with his mom to tell her everything. He showed her the papers and explained the next steps, but it was the smile on her face that said it all. "I always knew you were destined for something special, Jamal," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You've worked so hard, and now all of that effort is paying off." Tears welled up in Jamal's eyes as he looked at her. For so long he had worried about letting her down, but now he felt a deep sense of pride, knowing that he was about to give her the future they had always dreamed of. The next day, Jamal went back to school with renewed determination. His classmates noticed the change in him, his focus, his drive, and some of them began to ask questions. When they learned about Sam's offer, their reactions ranged from disbelief to awe. It felt surreal, but Jamal knew one thing for certain. This was his chance, and he wasn't going to waste it. As the weeks passed, Jamal's life took on a new rhythm. School was no longer just about getting by. With Sam's sponsorship, everything felt more significant, more purposeful. But with that sense of opportunity came the pressure to perform, and Jamal could feel it mounting. He was no longer just a student trying to survive. He was a young man with the weight of someone else's faith on his shoulders. At school, his classmates began to notice the difference in him. Jamal was no longer content with merely completing assignments. He asked more questions in class, participated in discussions, and even started helping his peers with difficult subjects. His teachers were impressed by the change. Some even started pulling him aside after class to offer extra guidance. They could see that he wasn't just going through the motions anymore, but not everyone was impressed. There were whispers behind his back. Some of the kids who had once been his friends began to distance themselves. They noticed the new attention Jamal was getting and started to resent it. It was subtle at first, a few snide comments here and there, but it grew over time. One day, after school, a group of kids cornered Jamal in the hallway. He could tell they had been waiting for him. The leader of the group, Chris, stepped forward with a smirk on his face. "So, the rich kid's getting special treatment now, huh?" Chris sneered. "Think you're better than us just because you got some billionaire to pay for your education?" Jamal stood tall, trying to keep his cool. "I'm just doing my best, Chris. That's all anyone should be doing." Chris laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think you're something special now, but you don't belong here with us. You'll never be one of us." Jamal felt a pang of hurt, but he didn't let it show. He had worked too hard to let people like Chris tear him down. "I'm not trying to be anyone other than myself," Jamal said firmly. "I'm just trying to get a better life. You should try it too." With that, Jamal turned and walked away, not giving Chris or the others a chance to respond. His heart was racing, but he didn't stop. He couldn't afford to. He had too much riding on this. The challenge was clear now. This wasn't just about school or his future. It was about proving to everyone, especially himself, that he could rise above the obstacles in his path. It wasn't going to be easy, but Jamal had never been afraid of hard work. He had a chance to make something of himself, and he wasn't going to let anyone stand in his way. Weeks turned into months, and Jamal's life seemed to be moving forward at a pace he could barely keep up with. His grades continued to improve, and the doors that Sam had opened for him began to swing wide. But with every step forward, it felt like he had to fight harder to prove that he belonged. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at school, Jamal sat at his desk, staring at the pile of homework before him. He was tired, physically and mentally, but he couldn't afford to give up. Sam had given him this chance, and he wouldn't waste it. He rubbed his eyes and focused on the math problem in front of him, trying to make sense of the numbers. Just as he thought he was about to make some progress, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Claire, Sam's assistant. "Jamal, Sam would like to meet with you tomorrow after school. He has something important to discuss. Please let me know if that works for you." Jamal felt a wave of nervousness wash over him. It wasn't unusual for Sam to want to meet, but the fact that he'd mentioned it was important made Jamal uneasy. Was something wrong? Was he about to lose the sponsorship? He tried to shake off the worry, but it lingered in the back of his mind. The next day after school, Jamal made his way to the office building where Sam worked. He was greeted by Claire, who led him to a sleek conference room. Sam was already seated at the head of the table, his expression more serious than usual. "Jamal, good to see you again," Sam said, offering a warm but somewhat tight-lipped smile. "Please, have a seat." Jamal sat down, trying to mask his anxiety. "What's going on, Sam? You said it was important." Sam nodded, his fingers tapping on the table lightly. "I want to talk to you about your future, Jamal. I've been following your progress, and I'm really impressed with how you've been handling things. But I also know it's been a tough road for you." Jamal's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" Sam leaned forward, his eyes locking with Jamal's. "You've had some struggles at school, haven't you? With your classmates, I mean. The way some of them treat you, I know it's not easy." Jamal looked down at his hands, the weight of the truth settling in his chest. "Yeah, I guess you could say that. It's like they see me getting ahead and they can't stand it. I don't know what to do about it." Sam's expression softened. "I understand, Jamal. It's hard when the people around you can't see the effort you're putting in, or when they feel threatened by your success. But here's what I want to tell you. Don't let them define you. Don't let their opinions stop you from reaching your potential." Jamal nodded slowly, feeling a surge of gratitude. He hadn't expected this kind of support from Sam, but it meant everything to him. "I've seen your drive, Jamal," Sam continued. "You're going places, and I want to make sure you have the resources and the support you need. That's why I'm offering you something even more. I want to give you the opportunity to intern at my foundation. It's a chance to get real-world experience, and it will also open doors for your future." Jamal's eyes widened in shock. "Intern with your foundation? You're serious?" Sam smiled, his eyes twinkling. "I wouldn't offer it if I wasn't. I think it's time you started to see just how much you're capable of." The offer hung in the air like a golden opportunity, and Jamal could barely comprehend what Sam was saying. This was more than just a scholarship. It was a chance to build a future, to step into a world he had only dreamed about. With a shaky breath, Jamal spoke up. "Thank you, Sam. I won't let you down." Sam stood, offering his hand. "I know you won't, Jamal. You've already shown me what you're made of." The following weeks were a whirlwind for Jamal. Between schoolwork, his internship with Sam's foundation, and the growing tension with his classmates, it felt like his life was spinning faster than he could keep up. But through it all, one thing became clear. Jamal was no longer just trying to survive. He was thriving. His internship was everything he had hoped for and more. Sam's foundation focused on youth empowerment, providing educational resources and mentorship to underprivileged children. It was exactly the kind of work Jamal had always dreamed of being involved in, and for the first time, he felt like he was in the right place. Every day, he worked alongside professionals, learning about nonprofit management, community outreach, and most importantly, how to use resources to create meaningful change. But there was one moment that would forever stay with Jamal. The day Sam took him to a youth event the foundation was hosting. It was a gathering of high school students from various communities, many of whom had similar struggles to Jamal's, growing up in tough neighborhoods, facing adversity, and trying to find a way out. Sam stood on the stage, speaking about the importance of education, hard work, and perseverance. As he spoke, Jamal noticed something different about the way people looked at him. They weren't just admiring him for his success. They were inspired by it. Sam finished his speech and turned to Jamal. "I want you to meet someone, Jamal." Jamal walked to the stage, unsure of what was happening, but Sam introduced him to the crowd. "This is Jamal," Sam said. "A young man who's been through a lot but has shown what it takes to succeed. He's interning with our foundation now, and I believe he's going to do incredible things in the future." The room erupted into applause. Jamal stood there, stunned, as the students cheered for him. It was a humbling experience, one that made everything he had worked for feel more real than ever. For the first time, Jamal realized that his journey wasn't just about him. It was about inspiring others, about showing them that no matter where you come from, you can always rise above. As the months passed, Jamal's relationship with his classmates began to shift. Slowly but surely, they began to see him in a new light. The snide comments faded, replaced by curiosity and eventually respect. It wasn't that Jamal had changed. It was that he had given them a reason to believe in themselves. One afternoon, as Jamal walked home from school, he passed by the same corner where he had first met the homeless man. This time, though, it wasn't the man sitting there. Instead, there was a small note pinned to the lamppost with a simple message. "Keep going, Jamal. You're on the right path." Jamal smiled to himself, knowing that even without Sam's help, he had found his own way. But Sam's belief in him had been the spark that had ignited the fire of his ambition. That night, Jamal sat down to write a letter to Sam. He wanted to thank him, not just for the scholarship or the internship or the doors he had opened, but for believing in Jamal when no one else did. "You've changed my life," Jamal wrote, "and I promise I will make the most of every opportunity you've given me. I won't let you down." Jamal knew the road ahead would still have challenges, but for the first time, he felt ready to face them. With a newfound sense of purpose, he was determined to build a future where he could give back to others, just like Sam had given to him. The journey was just beginning.